Hello, I am back and it is like 9 in the morning and I am just so giddy and excited because today I'm going to be talking about one of my most favorite things ever to talk about, and that is books. Yes, today I'm going to be talking about all the books that I read in February, and I'm just gonna go out and say it. I'm just gonna go out and say what we're all thinking. February was perhaps my most amazing month for reading. I found 3 different 5-star reads, which never happens for me. I don't know how many books I've rated 5 stars in my life, but the number is few and far between because I am a very picky reader. So many things have to fall perfectly in order for me to think that a book is worthy of 5 stars. A book doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to like hit the right chord, like hit the right notes in my emotional system and just make me feel certain things. I'm just really picky. A book can be absolutely amazing and it will still get 4.5 stars for me, but I found 3 5 stars, and that is something to celebrate. So I am very excited to talk about all the books that I read in February because there were some really good ones. If you didn't know, I was in Paris for a couple weeks in February. I actually have another Paris vlog that I need to edit. So I think it'll come after this video, which is a bit non-chronological, so I apologize. Most of the books that I read, I did read physical copies, and I absolutely fell in love with physical books. I've always loved physical books, but I just gravitated more towards my Kindle just out of convenience. I also do a little bit of online book secondhand shopping. I like to use the website Better World Books. I think I've even shopped on like thrift books before, so I have like a collection of books that I want to read, but majority of my previous reads have been just digitally through my Kindle. But while I was in Paris, I loaded a bunch of books onto my Kindle, and I also brought a few physical books. So I just had a good mix of both. I'm gonna go in chronological order in which I read each book. My first read of February, which is a book that I read quite briefly. I also spoke about this in my last video, which was my like Paris reading curriculum. But I read Getting Lost by Annie Ernaux. She's very well known for her intense vulnerability and like self-reflection. She's just not afraid to really lay it all out there and kind of share the world how obsessive her brain can be at times, and like really not afraid to share all of her flaws. So the book Getting Lost is about her life whilst she was having an affair with a younger man, and it really showed, as the title suggests, her just completely losing herself in this situationship, this relationship. It's a collection of her diary entries during the time that she was partaking in the affair, and all of her entries are completely revolved around this man and whether or not he's gonna call her, whether or not he's gonna see her, how long it's been since they've had last contact. And the entire book is just showing how her brain is completely wrapped up in this relationship, and it's kind of like no thoughts, just man, which is a little bit unappealing to me. So I read this book quite quickly. I read this book in I think 3 or 4 days, if that. And I think that this is not the type of book that you're supposed to read in a brief amount of time. I think that this is meant to be a lot more spaced out because the diary entries got incredibly repetitive, incredibly frustrating. It would be one day she's journaling about how she's just so like her heart is just ripped apart by this man, and she knows that she needs to end things with him because she's too far deep and she's losing herself too much. And then the next day it will be saying, oh, he called me, I'm so in love, life is so perfect. And then it's kind of just a cycle of that. That being said, as what Annie Ernaux is very known for, I did really appreciate how vulnerable and how raw this book was. I just really admire how her ability to just share the deepest parts of her brain. I also, one of my favorite artists, if not my favorite artist, Lorde, has spoken quite a lot about Annie Ernaux and how she really takes inspiration by Annie Ernaux's vulnerability, and she kind of has spoken on whenever she's having a hard time with songwriting or really getting into like a deep and juicy, raw, vulnerable place within herself, she'll kind of turn to Ernaux's work to get inspiration and kind of allows herself to go deeper with herself, which I didn't receive this same experience through Annie Ernaux, but through some of the other books that I read, I experienced that, where I felt like literature, I was able to get moved closer to myself through the books that I was reading, which was really, really incredible. That's something that I've never experienced before. That's kind of all I have to say about Getting Lost. I do look forward to reading more of Ernaux's work. I think this was just not the book for me. but that being said, I'm not upset that I read it. This was my first 5-star read in quite a while. This is Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. This book had been recommended to me for years. Oh, I actually ordered this online right before I left for France because I just knew that this was a book that I wanted to read in Paris. So Giovanni's Room is about main character David. It's set in the 1950s and he's American living in Paris, and one day he meets this bartender Giovanni and kind of falls into this actually James Baldwin doesn't give a lot of details about what their relationship is, but he does fall into this sort of romantic relationship with Giovanni and spends a lot of his time in Giovanni's room, as the title suggests. Whilst being in this sort of ambiguous lovership with Giovanni, he also is dating and becomes engaged to this American. You can really see how the main character is really struggling with homophobia throughout the book and just inner conflicts, inner turmoil, and how he's not able to express that in a healthy manner. So it kind of sabotages the people around him, and he kind of creates this downward spiral for everyone that is in proximity to him. This book was quite tragic and just sad, but also James Baldwin has a way of writing about darker, more twisted, more like fucked up things while also maintaining this level of beauty and poetry in his book, which I realized in media, whether it's in films or it's in literature, something that I really, really, really love is like twisted, dark, sad themes mixed with beauty. So like, for example, one of my all-time favorite movies is Bones and All, which if you're not familiar, it's a movie about cannibals, but it's also one of the most beautiful movies that I've ever seen. Same with the movie Kill Bill. It's about these women assassins, but there's an infamous scene where Lucy Liu and Uma Thurman are, I don't know the correct verb, kataning each other to death in this backdrop of this beautiful snow scene. So something that I really love is the juxtaposition between beauty and more dark and twisted themes. So James Baldwin does a really great job of maintaining beautiful prose while also exploring darker themes, and I thought it was so well written. I actually had never, namely because I usually don't read physical books, but I've never like annotated books before. It's just been something that I'm scared of. I'm scared of marking up my books, but you will see I have quite overcome that fear. You'll see that in the books coming. But I had a decent amount of like underlined, and just some of the things I was reading, I just was like, oh my gosh, this is James Baldwin is just exploring such deep and like internalized parts of David's brain, and it just took my breath away. This was such a 5-star read. I loved it. I loved reading it in Paris. I just loved reading it. I'm sorry if you can hear my chair squeaking, and I'm sorry if you notice the candle or the tripod, the angle changing a bit. I tried to replace my chair, but I don't have a chair that works. So sorry if you can hear the squeaking. I'll try not to fidget so much. I'm just excited. Yep, that's the chair squeaking. The next book I read was Foster by Claire Keegan. I honestly don't have much to say about this book. I read this again while I was in Paris. I read it in under 24 hours. It is quite a short read. I think it was my own fault why I didn't enjoy this book very much. I think I just maybe wasn't engaged enough as I should have been. I kind of wasn't really understanding what was going on, but I did also recognize that this book was very beautiful. It's about a young child who goes and lives with either like distant relatives or distant foster parents for like a summer because she's from like a neglectful household, and whilst living with these other parents, she feels what love and warmth and kindness and safety is for the first time. So you're kind of in her perspective while she's feeling these things that she should have been feeling in her household all along. Yeah, it's quite a short read. I did think that it was pretty. I just wasn't as engaged as I should have been, so I just was having a harder time following it. I think I just need to come back to this one and give her a second chance. But for the time being, I rated it 2.5 stars. All right, the last book that I read in France was Heated Rivalry. I'm not gonna speak too much about it just because I don't read these like corny fiction books or these like smut books, very often. This is Heated Rivalry by Rachel Reed. If you are living under a rock and somehow haven't heard of the film adaptation of Heated Rivalry, I'll give a brief synopsis. It's about these two NHL hockey players, Shane Hollander and Ilya Rozanov, and they are arch rivals and they end up falling in love and sparking this like forbidden romance. I loved that it was a queer read. I've been really into queer literature, as you will see by my next reads as well. Okay, hear me out. I did rate this 4 stars out of 5. That is not because of the writing. I think writing alone, this would be a solid 2 stars, maybe 2.5 stars, because I did enjoy the last section of the book where Shane and Ilya go to the cottage. I just had such a fun time reading this, picturing, I don't want to like fall too much into like the fandom, just because I know that Heated Rivalry is talked about endlessly online, but being able to picture Connor's story and Hudson Williams while reading this book, it did leave me kicking my feet quite a bit, and it was just such an easy read. Again, this was not well written, but I had a fun time, and I think for having as much fun as I did have, it's okay that I rated it a 4 stars. But yeah, I was quite disappointed because, you know, in the TV show and with any film or television adaptation, you're never gonna get as much depth, as much context as you will get if you read the books. So I was really looking forward to kind of being able to pick Shane and Ilya's brain while reading this, but that's really where the book fell flat for me. Rachel Reed did not go in depth into, you know, inner dialogue or just dialogue in general. I felt that a lot of the times when I wished that the characters would just talk or even have deep thoughts about what was happening, Rachel Reed just liked to slap a little sex smut scene on top of any scenes where there could have been potential for going a little bit deeper, which was my biggest grievance with the book. Just wished that I could have gotten more into the brains of these 2 men, and I just didn't really get that. So that was my biggest thing. I think that that's just this genre of kind of these like, I guess, smut, where, you know, you're not reading smut to get some deep introspection. You're kind of reading smut to have a fun time. All right, after Heated Rivalry, I read The Lover by Margaret Duras. Duray? I'm not quite sure how to say her name. This was an interesting read. I read this in a couple days. I ended up rating it 3.5 out of 5 stars. So this is about a younger girl who sparks a relationship with an older Chinese man, and it had a little bit of queer undertones, which I liked. It was also one of the books where it's like, wait, this is kind of fucked up and weird, but also beautiful at the same time. Again, that's something that I'm really into. I think I was a little bit disappointed about this book. I saw it quite a bit online, and I thought that maybe it was a little bit slow. It was dragging its feet a little bit to get through. I also don't really remember, like, of course I remember that I read it, but I don't remember anything grand about it. It was kind of just interesting, and it was just okay. I have a little bit of tabs, and there's some things that I did underline. It wasn't as beautiful, or it didn't go as deep as some of the other reads that I read this month, but I'm glad that I read it. All right, now this book is, I have to say, my all-time favorite book. I was so blown away by this book. I'm still in awe. I will forever recommend it. I will forever be talking about it, and I do feel the same about the next book that I'm gonna share, but Written on the Body by Jeanette Richardson was an absolute masterpiece. I was never able to fully grasp what describing a book as a meditation was before I read this book, but by God, this was a meditation. I felt like whenever I picked up this book, I was just absolutely sucked into this world, into this storyline, and just the entire world faded away. I read this book in, I think, a day, maybe a little bit over 24 hours, and I just could not put it down. This is the most beautiful book I've ever read. Jeanette Richardson's prose completely blew me away. Just every single line read like pure poetry. It was like liquid silk. I could not get over it. I felt like my jaw was just dropping at every single page. And this is really where I got into annotations, because I was underlining, like I felt like I was almost abusing what annotations should be, because I was just putting sticky tabs and notes and underlines on like every single page, because I could not believe how incredible her writing was. I haven't heard many people talk about this book. I actually found this book at Value Village like a week ago, and I was like, wait, I think I have that marked on my Goodreads. Like, I'll pick it up. I didn't know anything about it, which I did really love going into it blind, but this was absolutely amazing, and I felt like this is my segue into queer literature. Like, I feel like now I'm really going to be hyper-focused on reading about specifically sapphic novels. I don't know why, it just hasn't been something that I have picked up much before, but now between this and Giovanni's Room, I'm in love. It makes me feel so deeply seen and just connected to the characters in a way that I haven't felt before. Something really interesting about this story is that the narrator is genderless, but I felt very connected to the way that despite the explicitness of the narrator's gender, it just screamed women to me. The way that the main character was able to love so deeply and honestly and just explain her feelings or their feelings in such a profound way, that felt like something that only women, at least in my experience, have been able to do. So it's about the narrator who has a history of falling in love and starting relationships with married women. She finds this one woman, Louise, who she absolutely falls like head over heels for. And the way that Winterson is able to explain how deeply this person loves and just like how deep and beautiful their relationship is, I was so in awe. It was quite tragic. I don't want to spoil what happens, but again, I love tragedy with the backdrop of beauty. I actually wanted to share one of my favorite passages from this book that I just felt like encapsulated how beautiful and poetic all of Winterson's writing is. In silence and in darkness, we loved each other as I traced her bones with my palm, and I wondered what time would do to the skin that was so new to me. Could I ever feel any less for this body? Why does adorn pass? Time that withers you will wither me. We will fall like ripe fruit and roll down the grass together. Dear friend, let me lie beside you, watching the clouds until the earth covers us and we are gone. Oh, like, is that not just the most beautiful passage about love and adornment that you have ever read? If it is not, I don't know what is. Yeah, this book, I don't know, I can't explain how much I love this. This was 5 stars through and through and through and through. My very last book of the month, and possibly one of not even possibly, 100% one of my all-time favorite books as well. This was An Apprenticeship or The Book of Pleasures by Clarice Lispector. This was my very first Clarice Lispector read. I've heard a lot about her. She is just known for her incredible, and I felt like quite, what's the right word? Not like revolutionary, but maybe revolutionary is the right word, like groundbreaking writing. She's a Brazilian writer, and her books are often about existentialism, and particularly existentialism in your 20s. I saw this video, it was actually on Pinterest, of this person talking about Clarice Lispector's writing and kind of sharing about like what all of her books are about. And she was saying, like, if you are a person, particularly a woman in your 20s, you need to pick up Clarice Lispector because, and I agree with this, she makes me feel so seen. And I really felt like when I was reading this book, she was able to grasp like all these different parts of myself that I haven't even been able to like identify or articulate, and she was able to like pluck them from the deepest corners of my brain. And I was like, wait, I didn't even know that that was there. But like as I was reading her book, I was like, why is this so deeply me? And then I'm like, wait, I resonate so much to this and I haven't even realized. It was just like reading a mirror of myself. I'm gonna be honest, I did rate this book 4.75 stars, not 5 stars, but also at the same time, this was a 5-star read for me, just because I felt like some of the parts were a little hard to read. Her writing is like quite abstract at times, so I felt like sometimes when I was reading her passages, I was getting like a little bit lost in the sauce, but I also was loving every word of it. And I felt like even if I wasn't able to fully grasp the concepts that she was exploring, I still related to them very deeply. This book is about the main character, Lori, who is just a girl that, or a woman that just really gets kind of in her own way. She's like too introspective. She kind of gets like lost in the sauce in her brain, which is something that I can relate to, and I feel like everyone in their 20s can relate to, of just being too in your head and like your inability to let go, and it really impeding on your ability to enjoy life to the fullest. So this is kind of about her journey of really letting go and really finding her path and falling in love with life. And it was just such a beautiful and remarkable story. This was also a book where actually like underlined, I felt like almost every page I had like some note. This was also the first book where I was writing like whole entries in the margins or just like on the pages, because I just was like, I'm having so many thoughts, I'm feeling so many things, like I need to write this down. I felt like as I was reading Liz Spector's words, I was learning about myself in her writing, and I was like, okay, I just have to like get these thoughts on paper because this feels fleeting and I want to capture all of this. This was, I think, the first time where I was ever able to learn more about myself in literature, and that was such an incredible thing. Hello, I'm currently editing this video, and I just wanted to do a little shout out about learning about yourself more through literature, and particularly through fiction. I watched this video essay by this YouTuber Josephine, and she did a really great job kind of explaining that concept and the idea of self-mythology and just using fiction to explore and go into deeper parts of yourself. Yeah, if you were interested in some of the things that I was saying, I highly recommend this video essay because she goes a little bit more in depth and she's just very well spoken. On that note, I'm gonna go into some of my March TBRs, or just TBRs of the up and coming months. So the first one, which is my current read, is, yes, another Clarice Lispector book. This is Near to the Wild Heart. This was Lispector's actually debut novel. I don't know too much what it's about, honestly, because I went into the apprenticeship or the Book of Pleasures blind, and that's also my intention for this one. I liked kind of finding, like, working through what it's about while reading it. I just know that this is another piece of fiction that people say, read this in your 20s, it's existential, it's just supposed to be absolute poetry. So I'm excited for this. I'm also reading Madonna in Her Fur Coat. This was a book that I talked about in my last video. It's just a book that's supposed to be like the epitome of yearning, and it's about this man who, when he's younger, he falls in love with this woman, and then the lovership ends, and it kind of is just how his entire life has been shaped and affected by that experience. I felt more like a month ago this way, but I do feel like I am in a stage of life in which I feel like everyone is these days, but where I'm really interested in yearning and really embodying yearnment. So I felt like this read would be absolutely perfect for that. I do feel a little bit out of that era right now, which is why I started this book but haven't quite finished, but I'm still excited to read that book. I also picked up A Little Life. I thrifted this book for a couple bucks, I think last week, and I'm actually very terrified for this, but I'm really excited. I'm trying to get some of my shorter, maybe lighter reads out of the way, and then I'm gonna commit to this absolute beast. I'm also reading, or I'm listening to A Tree Grows in Brooklyn on like Spotify, just an audiobook. I really like it. It's a character-driven novel, which I've been enjoying a lot recently. Just kind of like no plot, just life and people growing and becoming themselves. The narrator is also very, very incredible. So it's been fun to listen to. I kind of listen to it while I'm driving to work or sometimes when I'm getting ready in the morning. But yeah, I like it. Oh, okay, I've been talking for almost 40 minutes, and honestly, I loved every minute of it because I could talk about books for hours and hours, but I feel like I should probably end this video soon so that it's not too long. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you found at least some inspiration from this video. I hope that at least you consider checking out Written on the Body or An Apprenticeship or the Book of Pleasures. If you have any recommendations for me, please let me know based off of anything that I shared in this video. Also let me know any like lighthearted books that would be good to read after A Little Life, because I know that this is gonna leave me probably laying in bed for a couple weeks after. So let me know something that could help me recover after tackling that beast. I've been talking so much. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you have a great day and happy reading.